And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. And today, me and Daniel are with a very special guest, professional wrestler, producer, and one of the great minds of professional wrestling, TJ Wilson, aka Tyson Kidd. How are you today?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Daniel?
I'm good, man. Excited. The Clippers just won. That's cool.
They sure did. They sure did. LA basketball's still alive in LA. Clippers
Oh, for sure. LA is very fortunate with all of their sports teams. It's kind of unfair. It's very.
You have multiples. You have multiples. It takes a minute to get all the teams out of there.
And I guess that's true. They got like 3 hockey teams, which I'm always like, one of them's got to be good, right? Anaheim, LA Kings, or San Jose. Like, you can't.
Exactly.
So I completely understand. Yeah. You want to kick things off, Daniel?
Yeah. So fans are finally coming back. We're finally moving on to the Thunderdome. But I wanted to get your take on it, man. Are you excited? Like, what are you looking forward to? Like, it's about time because I know it's been since WrestleMania since we had fans back, right?
Yeah.
That was like just a tast of it. Now
it's a big taste. It was like 28,000 people.
Yeah.
But it was a taste. You're right. And then it's been over a year prior. So I mean, yeah, I think everybody's super excited to get back in front of fans. I'm definitely excited. I just the last little while has been so convenient for me. So now it's time to get callous up again and get back to like going to airports and flying.
Yeah, getting back on the road because it's all been in Florida as of right now. Right?
But then like when I see like for example they announced SummerSlam yesterday. So like Vegas is a place obviously I love. I think everyone does. Everyone loves going there. It's usually leaving's where you see the sad faces. Phoenix, a place that I love. So like when I see these towns on the schedule, when I see these cities, it's like, oh yeah, it's been so long since I've been there. I can't wait to go back. So there's that excitement for sure. But in terms of like making things work during this past year, I thought we've done an amazing job. And selfishly, it's been very I've been very fortunate in terms of just my travel. When you go from flying around the country and around the world, honestly, every week to driving to work every week, I'm in my own bed every night. Like it's so different, and it's cool. But I think everybody's excited to get back in front of fans, especially the talent, and getting back to. It's funny. I don't know. It might take a minute to kind of like readjust. To things. I don't know. Who knows?
That's what I'm curious about too. I'm like for the wrestlers,
and the fans are excited.
Yeah. No, I'm like for the wrestlers, it must be so.
Yeah.
It must be such a major adjustment for them to go from wrestling in front of no one, getting used to that. Okay, we're working this different style thing. Now going back in front of fans, we're like, it must be a different style. Of course, I don't know. You would know, of course, right? So,
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. It'll be really fun, and it's kind of cool. Like everybody had a break from each other, so it's like it's fresh for both sides. It's real fresh for the fans. It's really fresh for us. So and for the talent. So it's cool. It's very It's like we had a little break and we refound our love for each other.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah. Speaking about WrestleMania, we talked about that really quickly for a second there. Personally, for me, my favorite women's wrestler of all time is Sasha-Bianca. My followers know that for sure. But that being said, how big of a deal was it at WrestleMania this past year to have Sasha and Bianca main event the first night of WrestleMania, the first time 2 black women main evented a WrestleMania, to say the least, but just main evented at all. As a producer, like what was that like, and how big of a deal was that for women's wrestling overall?
I think it was huge.
Yeah.
I don't know, like obviously, but I don't even know how to put it into words. I think what it meant in terms of like, what does it mean for the future? What is it like? How many? I mean, obviously, all the women on our roster, like how many little girls right now are seeing our women and being like, oh my God, like I can do that. Like, and how different it is than how it used to be. And that's, that's evolution. And, I mean, better late than never. So at least, but I think a match like that at that magnitude, a singles match like that, and the fact that it was like the main event of the first time with fans in over a year, like it was night 1. So just made it very special. It was extremely special.
It was such a good match. I'm a big fan of it. I made Daniel watch it with me like 3 times. We watched it 3 times each. But I
didn't watch it back at first. I just let it kind of be in my brain for about a week, and then I watched it, and then I watch it a bunch of times. I'm so happy with it every time I watch it. Like every time I watch it, it's like obviously I watch it a bunch of times. That's why I do know everything that's going to happen. But when I'm watching it, I try to lose myself in it and get lost in it and almost get surprised, even though I've seen it I've watched it back probably 10 or 12 times now.
That hair whip was everything. It was loud. And just the story and everything. I really loved that match. I was a big fan of it. And there was something about that night, and I don't know if it was because the rainstorm or whatnot, but because of it, they didn't have the LED posts and everything was kind of dimmed down. And if just for some reason, because of that, without all the distractions, the focus was really on the wrestling.
Yeah,
because the focus was on the wrestling,
ambiance, right?
Yeah, it gave it like that old school, like arena feel of
it's a stadium and it's WrestleMania.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you're right.
Did you ever watch it back and notice like, oh, there's not the LED lights, it's not it was the regular apron. It put the focus back on the match and the two girls in the middle of the ring. And I was like, I think that's what made it feel so much more different and like an old school wrestling match too. Because
the truth is, I mean, I don't know, but that might have even been the rain. Like that might have been by design on the production side of things. So that production side of things, what we do, they're so amazing. And those guys, like the stuff that they pulled off, I mean, over the last 30 years, 50, 40 years, but over the last year, the things that those production people do is like so mind blowing to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're doing, just Raw and SmackDown, just on the main roster, we're doing 5 hours of live TV every week. And like that, the talent, obviously, all our side of things, but that production side of things is so unbelievable too. And a lot of times they don't always get mentioned, but they're insane. Like in terms of how good they are at their job. Everyone will notice the things that are wrong, but there's always so much that's right that never gets the credit. Like there's all this time where it's perfect, but people point out the one time that something went wrong. 20%. Yeah. And you're disregarding the 80% that is like home runs all the time. I find that I see that stuff all the time, mostly on my page. I'm like, you're just regarding this one thing that went wrong when there's like the whole rest of it was great. So like my friend right now is trying to tell me that Kawhi didn't stop Luka in the second half. I showed him that in the second half, Luka, in the middle of the fourth quarter, only had 6 points. He ended up scoring 9 more. But I was trying to explain to him, he put up 29 in the first, and Kawhi shut down. Same thing. He wants to complete. He's like, well, then how? He's shutting down means 0 points. It doesn't mean 0 points. It means he didn't keep carrying on. Yeah, he took it easy at the end. Sometimes when we're trying to debate things and argue things, we're looking for that one little thing that isn't quite 100%. Yeah, 100%. It's human nature when we're kind of debating something, I think. No, for sure. I think it's true, yeah.
No, for sure, 100%. I think WrestleMania was such a great night. But switching gears, we saw Sasha, but also Bianca. She's sort of this new generation, of, women's wrestlers. So Rhea Ripley wrestled Asuka in a great match. And also, do you see a little shift from that 4 horsemen group to women such as Shayna Baszler, Nikki Cross, Bianca, as I mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you're saying. I think it comes in ebbs and flows. I think, the 4 horsewomen, and then, like, for example, like Natty and Beth before them, and Natty's still on the roster full time. But they're going to kind of go, like, they're going to obviously do some amazing things, and then you're obviously going to end up sliding. We always, at all times, there always needs to be fresh talent kind of cycled into kind of everything that's going on. So I think, it's gonna come and go, but like, I think obviously someone like Sasha is going to come back and kind of almost be right back where she left off. I feel like, I just think in terms of like, it's not like, and even like right now, even Bayley and Charlotte both are still. So right now, Becky and Sasha are not up, haven't wrestled, and Charlotte and Becky are both in the title picture. So I don't really know that you can say that 4 horsewomen are gone. I don't think the 4 horsewomen are going away, but it just kind of feels like a new breed's coming up. For me, with the 4 horsewomen, and like Alexa and Asuka, what I see them as like now they're like the core where beating them means something. They're the ones that, this new breed of talent's coming up. And them working with the Sasha, Charlotte, Becky, Bayley, Alexa, Asuka, these women that have been Natty, all these women that have been killing. Like this new breed is coming though now, and it feels like this. And I think you're right, and I think that's from all the hard work that these women have done for years. And I think just inspiring other people and showing everybody like, hey, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, and then proving it.
I think Bianca said in an interview too, she's like, one of her goals is to want to beat all 4 of the 4 horsewomen. She's like, I want to wrestle them on and beat them on. I'm like, that makes sense because they've reached that level now where they're those people.
That's a cool
thing.
That's
a goal that you want to do. And now it's like, oh, but that means like, I guess like Bianca and Rhea, this is like this new breed of women coming through. We're getting into a newer era where every era needs the old school and some of the new school, but we need them to work together. And
I agree.
Yeah. That being said, though, I was before we move on to some old school wrestling and stuff. The last question about the modern era and the women's wrestling stuff is Natalya and Tamina. Did not see that coming out of nowhere. Just in the sense that I always thought if Natty was going to win the tag belts, maybe it'd be with like a Beth Phoenix, and if Tamina was going to win the tag belts, maybe it was going to be with Nia Jax.
Yeah.
But then these two came together, and now they're just killing it, and it came out of nowhere. So like, what was the concept behind that, and like, how did that all come together? And it just works so perfectly. Like,
I think they did some kind of tag or something. I don't even 100% know. And then they told the story, I think, on a podcast, maybe on Ace podcast or something. But I think they did a tag or something first, and then a fan had made a picture, and it was like the families, and it was like the Head Shrinkers as tag champions.
Yeah.
It was the Hart Nation as tag champions. It was the Usos as tag champions. It was myself and Harry as tag champions. It was the British Bulldogs as tag champions. It was like it just was all this, and Owen and Yokozuna, which is funny, brings both families together. And the fan made this picture. There's all these little pictures, and it was a photoshopped one, but in this they included Natty and Tamina with the women's tag titles. And then when I saw that graphic, when I saw that picture that fan made, whoever made that brought a lot of things into existence.
Wow.
Because I saw that and I thought that was, just that visual was so powerful. Like I have it saved on my phone. It was beautiful. And I saw it and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I told Natty, I said, you have to go with this. You have to.
Yeah.
This is what you got to do. This is so awesome. And I wanted it to happen, but I don't control that. And so watching it, I know I'm working there, but kind of a little bit watching from the outside, or trying to watch it from the outside and enjoy it from that perspective. It was so awesome to see like this whole thing come together, and those two gelling instantly and killing it. It kind of in a different way, but it reminded me a little bit of myself and Cesaro, just in terms of like just this instant kind of chemistry. And like I was doing the headphones and stuff, and then Cesaro paired with me, then he started using headphones, and I started doing things he was doing, and we started playing off each other. And you see it with those two. You see Tamina change her look quite a bit. She added, she just looks
color.
Yeah, different color. and Natty's having fun with that aspect of it too. So it reminds me a little bit of myself and Cesaro in terms of just this chemistry being there, and them almost on the fly, like reinventing themselves and becoming this thing. And so it's cool. Like people, I get WWE just tweeted something about tag team stuff yesterday. So I get tweeted a bunch about myself and Cesaro, but the funny thing is we were just two, like the same thing that, like you were saying earlier, like when people want to complain about something, a lot of times they'll complain about like two guys being thrown together and becoming a tag team. Well,
yeah,
100%.
I agree, but sometimes it works out. Sometimes the New Age Outlaws happen. And I'm not comparing myself to New Age Outlaws by any means, but to a much lesser degree, sometimes myself and Cesaro happen, and everyone, like I said, I get tweets all the time. Like, oh my God, you guys were such a great tag team. It's like, okay, but understand, we were not at some tag team. I was doing my own thing. He was doing his thing. We got thrown together, and it worked. But you don't know that till we try it.
No, 100%. And there's a lot of tag teams that are like that out there. I think some of my favorite ones are the ones that weren't like supposed to be a traditional tag team, such as you and Cesaro, Sheamus and Cesaro. I remember when Owen and Davey, obviously they were family, but they weren't really supposed to be a tag team.
From my perspective, like of course I understand why that tag team works, but as a fan, from the outside, I understand why they would think it's just two singles guys teaming up.
100%. I think in recent memory too, Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre teamed up, and like they ran through Raw in 2018, 2019. Like
even Ziggler and Rude right now, like they're doing a great job, And
the truth is, every tag team is thrown together at some stage. Hawk and Animal didn't grow up the second they met each other and they were a tag team. They didn't just like grow up together from being little babies. They at one point were not a tag team, and they met each other and became a tag team.
That's true.
Just it didn't happen on TV. It happened somewhere else in the territory or something else. Like, so just because we don't know, like, just like the truth is, no one would ever suspect, like, just looking at it, that Bret and Jim were thrown together, but they were thrown together.
They were. That's true. Yeah.
They weren't just tag team in Stampede Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes people have to loosen up on that view a little bit, because the truth is, unless you're twin brothers or, you know, unless you're brothers or sisters, you're probably thrown together as a tag team.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%, I agree. But switching gears here a little bit, recently, I think it was a couple of days ago, there were a couple superstars that got released, and one of them happened to be Lana. And I know you and Lana worked really closely together. They even had like a network special, and the most upward respect for her, because she really busted her ass trying to get better. And you know, did you see her improving throughout that last couple of weeks leading up to the news?
Huge. She's been improving. I mean, Lana's always kind of that person that wants to. I mean, she'll ask every question in the book in a good way. Like, she really wants to get better at all times, and she, I mean, she started kind of really working with me in like September or October, and she's been working hard that whole way through. Like she was coming and training with me last weekend. So I mean, she's always coming through and always working hard every time. Lana never shows up and then doesn't work hard. Every time that she's shown up, she works hard, and every time she said she's going to show up, she's shown up. So it's super unfortunate. I obviously don't know any backstory on stuff, budget or whatever. I don't know, but it's super unfortunate. I'm a big fan of hers. Big fan of everybody. Braun and I are very close, I feel, at work. Buddy Murphy, I'm a big fan of. Alistair, big fan. Those two had some awesome matches.
They did, yeah.
Really awesome matches. You could always count on it to be that really awesome match. Ruby Riott, I'm a huge fan of Ruby.
So good. Yeah.
So good. And just a cool person, a great attitude. So it's always going to be, I spend time with the guys in the locker room, but I work with the girls so much that I'm always going to be a little bit more, I guess, biased towards them. And I feel really bad for all those people, and I feel really, really bad for Lana and Ruby right now. But I also know they're both going to be totally okay, because that's just who they are. They're going to be more than okay. The truth is, I'll end up being the loser out of this deal in terms of not being able to work with them anymore. Not anymore in this moment. Anymore, that's not true.
That's
I'll work with them again, I promise.
Yeah. No, I was curious about that too, just because we saw how closely you work with over social media and stuff, and in the documentary, and it was like, we saw her putting in the work more and more, and one of those people that sometimes gets a lot of flack online, where it's like, no, if you really pay attention, she's trying, and she's.
I mean, the proof's in the pudding. You can't tell me that she's the same performer 6 weeks ago that she was 2 years ago, 1 year ago. You cannot tell me that. I will not accept that.
No, 100%. Throwing it back a little bit, because I'm the Wrestling Classic, and I got a lot of fans. I love the old school stuff. I want to ask you a few old school questions to mix things up here. Something I'm always curious for everybody to get the opportunity to talk to you. For you specifically, who are some of your biggest influences and wrestlers that you love growing up?
Mine are always good, like the obvious ones. I preface it by saying I already know. You don't have to tell me. I am super biased. But of course, Bret, Davey, Owen, Jim. Then as I get a little older, the family's always talking about how good Dynamite Kid was. And then, and this is like pre-YouTube. I just remember always hearing about these Tiger Mask Dynamite matches. When I'm like 12 years old, so like 92, 93, I'm hearing about these matches. And I remember finally in like 96, Harry moves back to Calgary, and Davey had tapes of these matches because of YouTube. That was how you saw some things. But
hey, I'm old enough to know before YouTube and watching my older brother's VHS tapes of old Raws and SmackDowns, and that's how I learned stuff. So I get it.
Harry really got into tape trading at one point. Greyhound station all the time, where he's dropping off tapes and picking them up. Like, it was great. But man, like I remember seeing those matches and really being blown away. And of course, Shawn Michaels, Rey Mysterio influenced. I mean, look at the style right now, and please try to tell me that Rey Mysterio didn't influence what's happening.
No, 100%.
First time I saw him was Bash at the Beach '96, and I was so blown away. Luckily, it was July, so the ring was set up outside. And I remember Teddy and I watching the Ray Psychosis match. We'd pause, go outside, try to emulate what we saw. Definitely not as well. Come back inside, press play, see some more, press pause, go back outside, and like I remember watching that match so many times, and it changed our style so quickly. Literally, I remember reading about Ray in magazines, but never actually seeing him. We didn't get Nitro and stuff in Canada until '97. Oh, wow. Bash at the Beach '96, first time I see Ray. I was so blown away. So Rey Mysterio, and I liked other random guys. Like as I got a little bit older, like there's a part of me as a kid that liked Lex Luger quite a bit. I remember like really getting into the Lex Express and thinking it was so cool. Buff Bagwell was another one that I was a big fan of. I was already like wrestling at that point, but I thought like I really liked his charisma and his look and things like that. But yeah,
he had a personality. That was the thing about Buff. The whole Buff is the stuff. You talk in the camera. It's not like he was so over the top all the time.
Yes.
And like I was explaining this to Daniel the other day. We were watching a Nitro, and I was explaining the whole Lex Luger thing. He's like, I don't get the Lex Luger thing. I'm like, I don't know. As a kid, he was just jacked, and you thought he was strong, and he could do the torture act. He had the look.
Yeah.
The first poster, like wrestling poster in my room, is like from a WWE magazine, and it's a Lex Luger one from literally at that time. And I just remember it said like his birthday is July 4th. Who knows? Probably not true, right? I'm on my phone, so I can't. But I remember because he's Mr. USA at the time. I remember thinking like, wow, that's 1 week before my birthday. And I just remember like looking at this picture and being like, how can I ever look like this guy one day? I got some push-ups. And like that was like my first kind of like so I hadn't quite met Davey yet because when I first kind of get befriended by the family, for lack of a better term. They live in Davey, Harry. They live in Florida. So does like Jim and Ellie. I watched Royal Rumble '92 at their house in Calgary, and then they move. So, but Davey's in Royal Rumble '92. So I don't meet him yet. So I still hadn't met him. So then like seeing Lex Luger on TV, I was like, oh my God, this guy's so big. Then I kind of meet Davey, and I was like, oh man, how big is this guy in real life? And then that became my big influence at that time. But Lex was that first one, which is great.
I was the biggest Davey fan. I remember, and I always talk about it. So I was like, there's always that one thing he always did that made me think he was so strong. I specifically remember him doing it to the Vader, and it was that stalling vertical suplex. And he's just holding him there. I was like, this guy's so strong. Like I was a little kid, obviously, but I was like the strongest guy ever. I'm like, he's holding on Vader, and he's just standing there, like he's not even moving. I'm like, that's insane.
So then it's funny because before like Superstars is taped, I remember Davey saying, maybe he's still in Florida, but I remember like the word kind of gets back to he was very proud of it, but it was going to air in a few weeks. But it was like I think it was Davey and Lex against Men on a Mission. And Davey picks Mabel up on his shoulders. From a camel clutch, Davey stands up with Mabel on his shoulders, and I remember he was very proud of it, about its strength. But I think he'd also like made some kind of bet with Vince, and Vince. I know Vince. He was like Jedi mind tricking him, but he was like, he was telling Davey that Davey wasn't strong enough to do it, and he didn't think he could do it. And then Davey's like, you'll see. And then he was very proud of himself doing that.
Oh, that's insane. And I do want to point out before we move to the next question, I know I've posted a handful of times and stuff in the past, but one of which now it sounds even cooler to me hearing your story, but like that one match you got to have with Rey Mysterio, and I think it was like on a Superstars before WrestleMania 26. And I was like, it's just such a good match. So if you guys are on the internet, it is out there. I'm not going to say where. If you look it up, you can find it. Unless you have the WWE Network, you can watch it on there too. But check out that match. It's really good. It's one of my matches of yours that I really love.
Man, it was crazy. Like Ray gave me so much in that match. Like,
that's what I think it was too. It was like a really balanced out match.
Yeah, and like he's the man. He's the man. Like MVP. This is MVP saying, and I talked to MVP a bunch about this. Remember him saying it? He's like, if you ever meet someone and they're saying something bad about Ray, punch them in the face right away, because you know it's a lie. Like 100%. Man, to know Ray is like, I remember MVP first. I remember him saying that, and maybe I'm like brand new on the main roster, but I like I said earlier, I'm very influenced by Ray, so I wanted to really like him, even if he was the biggest jerk ever. I was gonna try, but he's not. He's so cool. He's the man. He really is.
100%. I think you had a lot of great matches, you know, during your first run in WWE. You had great matches with Ted DiBiase Jr. that I posted a while back. Yoshitatsu in ECW. I was watching a Christian match last night with you and him. You guys tore the house.
Yeah, I was really proud of that match.
You guys tore the house down, man. But I wanted to ask, like you mentioned Lex Luger, Buff Bagwell, but if you could build your own Survivor Series dream team, who would you have on it?
And we're gonna take the Hart family out of it because I feel like that one's very, because you can easily go Bret, Owen.
That makes it easier for me. I mean, well, not easier, but at least it helps me. Might make it harder. Damn, my Ultimate Survivor Series team with me in it too? Or?
Yeah, sure, with you in it. You have 4 people with you.
Is there any era, or is it wide open?
We'll do old school, and then if you want,
we'll do old school.
Yeah, we'll do old school. Anything pre-2000.
Sorry, what?
Pre-2010 maybe? Okay, yeah.
Damn. Let me think. Who I want to team with is the question, because teaming with someone and working against them are 2 very different things.
Yeah, true.
Let me think. Man, this is actually way harder than I thought. maybe you guys need to unlock the Hart Dungeon. I can just say that because this is tough. I'm gonna say, damn. Okay. How about this? Me, X-Pac.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
Sean and Hunter. Against Bret, Davey, Owen, Jim.
Oh, that would be dope.
And throw, you can put the Outlaws on our team, and you can throw like Ted and Harry
on the other team.
I mean, the stories that I was in, and I sabotaged them, and now I'm with DX.
That would be epic.
That would be pretty cool. Yeah.
And you could do that. I don't know if Daniel, you might have watched some of it. I remember back in the day, like in the 1980s Survivor Series, the early ones, they do those tag team Survivor Series matches, and there'd be like 20 guys on like each side.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember
those
that.
Tag team ones were insane. We take up the whole outside. It was like it was literally like a lumberjack match.
It was like the peak of tag team wrestling. You could tell because
there's so many tag
teams. They would have like 2 of them on the card, and then they'd have like Mr. Fuji outside and Slick, and I was like, holy smokes! But yeah, no, that's a great Survivor Series match. I think if that's kind of a Hart versus Click thing, and you turn on the family. That's what it sounds like.
Maybe it's a turn back in this match. You got to stay tuned.
Speaking about matches, though, one more old school throwback question here is: was there a specific match that you remember that really got you hooked, that made you say, "Oh, I think I want to do this"?
Yeah, Bret versus Davey, SummerSlam '92. It's easy. I can say it without.
Yeah,
and it was so simple, man. That was the match, hands down. I remember so 1990 is when I become friends with the family, and then really start to get engulfed into wrestling. And that's where like the sleepovers happen. And then on a Saturday morning, I just kind of want to play video games as a kid, but they have to watch wrestling first. And the thing in my household, I've told this story, but my cousin showed me wrestling. I came home. I was a little bit enamored with it, but I came home. I tried a couple of maneuvers on my sisters, and wrestling was quickly not allowed in my house anymore from my mom. So that was about 8. So then 2 years later, now I'm kind of being reintroduced to it. And but at 8, when it got banned from my house, I still had Ninja Turtles and stuff, so I was okay. But yeah, then when I'm just around them and just whatever it was called Superstars of Wrestling and or Wrestling Challenge and Wrestling Cavalcade or something aired in Canada.
Yeah,
it'd be 2 hours on. It'd be 1 hour. There's technically 2 separate shows, but it'd be 1 hour on Saturday morning, afternoons, early morning, or late morning, early afternoon. And anyway, then I just kind of became engulfed with it, and that was when I started to think and I remember Teddy, his brother, and Harry, they're always talking about being wrestlers. I was like, really? Like that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, then starting to get a lot more into it. And then SummerSlam 92, I just had no clue that wrestling could look like that.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind, and it like unlocked my mind, I think. And that's where I started kind of having that imagination when it came to wrestling and what you could do in the ring at that young age. And I knew instantly that second,
Yeah.
I had to.
No, for sure. I don't know. I just think about that match. I just remember watching when I was younger and stuff too. And obviously being Canadian, I like the Bulldog, but I was rooting for Bret.
Yeah.
But then the way it went out, I was like, oh, I did always like Davey too, though. But I obviously like Bret a little bit more. But yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. But moving forward with the current day stuff, you're a producer, obviously. But do you suggest any talent to suggest talent to watch a match? Or like any matches do you suggest?
Yeah, it happens all the time where people, like all of our talent are always asking, like always looking to get better and looking to improve and looking for something that not everyone's doing or something that can maybe give them a little bit of an edge. I think we're always seeking that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I definitely recommended matches to all types of people. Like I remember, I'm trying to think at what point. Maybe around Rumble, I remember like texting with Sasha and I sent her like some Koji Kanemoto stuff. I'm a big fan of his.
Yeah.
Going to New Japan the first time and being blown away at how he kind of carried himself, and we teamed a lot that first tour. I just remember I'd be on the apron just watching this guy and just learning, like, wow, look at something. Like and when I say something, I mean there's a lot of something. This guy's got a lot of something, and I was like, how can I just straight up steal like everything he's got? Is what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's awesome, and it's cool. Like he and I are friends on Facebook, and we message once in a while. Like just cool that he's so cool, and he was so cool to me when I was a 22-year-old kid, and and I just because the next tour after that, I wrestle him a lot. So the first one I'm teaming with him, the next time I'm wrestling him a lot. And it was cool how cool he was to me when we were partners, and he treated me with such respect when we wrestled each other. But I remember I remember sending Sasha like some of his matches at that point. I couldn't find all of them, like the really good ones that I was there live for. I can't find them on YouTube and stuff, but I can still find some samples of why this guy is as good as I think he was.
How much time did you spend in Japan, and like how valuable is it being able to go work that style over there to bring it over here and kind of incorporate it?
I mean, so it was very like the training I did was probably the most valuable thing. Well, take that back. It's not. I think that's the most valuable thing I did. Even with my neck injury, my surgeon post-surgery told me that. He asked me he said, I don't know your religious beliefs, but I think a higher power is how you survive this. And he said, your head was like a bobblehead when we went in there. When I went in there, had no stability. I don't know how he almost didn't know how my head stayed attached, basically.
Yeah.
And he said, but if we're gonna take a miracle or a stronger being out of it, and we're gonna try to use some science to explain why. He said it's just the muscles in your neck are so dense. And that goes back to my Japanese trainer. Like we trained so much, man. It was like started at like 3 or 4 days a week, then 5. Then I remember picking him up to go train. It was before my first tour. He said, hey, you have 6 weeks till your first tour. He's like, so now the real training begins. And I was like, the real training begins? We're training 4 or 5 hours a day, just like 3 or 4 of us doing this like insane, intense. It was, you know what it was? It was very similar to what MMA training is now.
Yeah.
Except in 2002.
Oh,
in 2002, there were a little group of us, and Rick Victor's one of them. We were doing this basically MMA style training for pro wrestling at that time. But then I went to Japan. I did 3 tours from like November, December 02. I went again in March 03. Then I did the Super Juniors in May, June 03.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And the year where they didn't bring me back in, then I did another tour where I wrestled Brian in a singles match on the last first one.
I gotta find that. Is that out there anywhere?
It might be. I had it on DVD once, and then And then I did one more tour the following year. I did the Super Juniors. So I did 2 Super Juniors tours.
That's pretty awesome.
But my training with my Japanese trainer, Tokyo Joe, life-changing. I wouldn't be this far, not even close. We wouldn't be doing this interview.
Yeah, so it's always interesting because you can always tell when some wrestlers might have worked around the world, whether it was Mexico or Japan. Like you can tell by their styles. And
spent a bunch of time in England too, in 05 and 06.
Oh wow!
05 I was there for 4.5 months, and then 06 I did like 9 weeks before my tryout.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that scene started really popping off in there.
Yeah, oh my, yeah. It had gone wild part of the pandemic.
No, for sure. Putting your producer hat back on for a second though. If you were able to, now that you have those skills and you produce matches and stuff like that, in that sense, if you could produce a match for any 2 wrestlers from the past, that you could be like, I would love to work with this person and this person in a match against each other, putting you on the hot seat again. People,
big time.
Would you people? He's like, damn, that you'd love to produce a match with.
God damn. I mean, honestly, there are so many. I honestly don't know. Like,
yeah,
I was gonna like say Bret and Sean because it'd be cool to see Bret's side, and of course Sean, and see their dynamic, and see. But I mean, what about like what about like Hulk Hogan in the '80s and kind of see how the way he sees things.
Yeah.
That like the cool thing about being a producer is that like when I sit with talent, I get to see how they see things. We all interpret things very differently, and I get to see how they interpret things or how they interpret what I've tried to explain. And it's the cool thing is that we all interpret things differently. We all have a different take, and that's the interesting thing of what I do.
No, for sure. You might have someone that's more free and wants to do things more.
And then that might spark.
You might get a guy with a Macho Man that comes up with you with a yellow legal pad with "This is what we're doing." Yeah. So I don't know. I guess it would be hard to tell. Yeah.
Usually it's a great combination of just a collaboration, honestly.
Yeah.
Usually not a dictatorship.
Well,
I mean, never.
Yeah, and I mean when you bring up the '80s, I'm like, I feel like they were more. I don't think there was many producers back then. I'm assuming.
I think there's a little bit of a different role. I think it's evolved, but there were still some. Like
Jack Lanza, Rene Goulet, Pat Patterson, I guess.
Yeah, Pat.
Yeah.
For sure. What was like your favorite match to produce though? Like over the years, I guess. I mean, because I know you produced a lot of great stuff, man.
Yeah, like now in terms of emotion, I mean, well, it's in terms of emotion, it's the Bianca Sasha, and then a close second is the Natalya-Tamina tag title match with Nia and Shayna. I'm so proud of both of those matches, like insane.
So good, dude.
Yeah. Proud of for different reasons, but I'm insanely proud of both matches. But maybe equally, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. I think both of those matches can if you look back on it in 10 years, like you'd go back and watch those matches. You know what I mean? Like they're so good to just study. And
obviously, I have recent bias. So those are both obviously like recent, like big matches for me. So those are gonna probably obviously be my 2, but those are my 2.
There's a workaround that you can say your favorite singles match you produced and your favorite tag match.
Yeah, there you
go. They're both okay now. Now they're both okay.
But I've also been a part of a lot of men's matches too. It's just the last little while where it's become this. Mm-hmm. But like I remember Seth, Finn, and Miz at Wrestlemania.
That was a great match.
That was really good.
Yeah, I was there live for that. That opened the show, and I was like, "Whoa!"
a lot of like Finn, Seth matches from that time. And the truth is, and I don't say this enough in interviews, but I learned a lot from like Michael Hayes and from Jamie Noble and every producer that I ever worked with. Honestly, Finley, Mike Rotundo. Honestly, I don't want to try to miss any. Dean Malenko.
For sure, yeah.
But when I came in as a producer, a lot of those guys, they all helped me out. Arn Anderson, they all helped me out. But then working with Seth, I worked with Seth a lot at that time, and I learned a lot working with Seth for this side of things that I do now. So Seth really, really helped me out a lot. I learned a lot from him.
Yeah, and I think during that time he was just like.
He was on fire.
He was doing those wrestled the first full hour Raw and that.
He did that gauntlet match, and he and I talked about it. So I didn't have him then, but I had him shortly after that.
Okay, yeah.
Or, all the time.
Yeah, I know.
We have a great relationship. We have a great rapport. But yeah, Seth helped me so much.
Yeah, Seth had a great 2018. I remember his matches with Dolph would really stood out to me. That Iron Man match. Did you produce that, by the way?
Yeah, I produced that.
Wow.
Man, I love that match. It's so good. It's great. But I wanted to ask about some current day stuff. So obviously there were some rumors swirling on the internet. Of course, it's wrestling, and WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling are supposedly wanting to do a collaboration. And obviously, I wanted to ask, since you're a workhorse, what dream match would you like want to see come about?
Man, so I haven't seen a lot of New Japan in a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I just assume he's always in great shape. I don't know. Like, I saw a picture recently, so I know he's in good physical shape. I don't know how his body. I remember him having a bad back like a long time ago. But Tanahashi, I like to see like.
Okay.
Like, I don't know. Like, would it be cool for fans to see Tanahashi versus Shinsuke, or is that too like, or would it be better like Tanahashi versus like Seth, for example, or versus Roman or whatever? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. The truth, and you got so many guys like I'm trying to think what other there's just
Okada's up there.
Okada against
a lot of people, there was some dream matches that were put out there. Some of them were kind of I think one was Tanahashi and Cena, Okada and Orton was one.
I was gonna say Okada Orton.
Yeah, because and then there's some other ones too. Like I know there was Roman. Oh, I don't. Maybe Roman and Naito, but there's a lot of them out there that people are interested in seeing. I would love if there was a big collab like that. I'd love to see Shinsuke go against one of the guys over there, like a Will Ospreay or a Jay White that he hasn't worked with yet.
That's a cool. Yeah. So he's going against like a Gaijin kind of.
A Gaijin from there with a Japanese guy that's over here. Really cool. So then he's not going back and working with someone he might have worked with when he was there, but
now he's taking guys.
Yeah, because they have the Ospreays and the Zack Sabers and the Jay Whites over there that could work.
That's really cool.
Yeah, but it was cool that the rumor was swirling around, and I think if that does happen, like it benefits everyone, but it would be great for
the other thing is it Gods of what is there?
Gods of Guerrillas of Warfare.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both those guys. Like and
Guerrillas of Destiny because they're called God. That's all.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, Guerrillas of Destiny. I'm so sorry. But I'm a big fan of both guys, especially even, I'm a big fan of their work, both of them, but even more personally.
Imagine them pairing it up against the Usos, because
be awesome.
That's a dream match right there. Yeah. Tonight, I know this is gonna be released a bit later, but tonight A&E's dropping that Bret Hart documentary, which we're all looking forward to watch. And if you haven't watched it by the point
then you're really in trouble with me.
Yeah, go watch it. Obviously, big Bret Hart fan. I'm looking forward to it. But it just left me wanting to ask you personally, like, what does Bret Hart mean to you? How has he influenced you at all? And is there any advice he's ever given you that has stuck with you throughout your wrestling career and even till now, maybe?
Yep, and he gave me some advice that I've passed on to a lot of people. So I've already seen this biography. I just want to throw that out there so everyone knows I have access to it. It's so awesome, and I'm gonna watch it again tonight when it airs. I'm so excited for it. It's hard in a 2-hour span to tell kind of anybody's story. It's really hard to kind of tell Bret's, and Bret is a very thorough person, so it's just a little bit hard to tell every detail. But it tells a lot of cool things. He's a great storyteller, just like he was in the ring. He's maybe better verbally, or just as good. I don't know, but yeah, man. And like, what does he mean to me? What's cool is like I think, and I know I'm biased, but even if I take my bias out of it, I think Bret might be the best ever. He's definitely in the conversation. To me, he is. His subtleties, I think, are what stand out more than anything. I remember kind of like what I said earlier about like Sasha-Bianca, but even longer. But like with Steve Austin and Bret's WrestleMania match, the submission match.
Yeah,
in my
favorite match of all time.
And I never wanted to. I for the longest time I didn't watch it again because I didn't want to like be that guy and try to pick it apart.
Oh, okay.
Then the Bret DVD came out and that match was on there. So literally like 8 years later, I'm like, press play, like, oh no. And I was like, and the match was like, from where I was in that point in the business, like watching it back from where I was at that point in 97 and then now in 05, blew me away. I was so mad at myself for wasting all this time not watching it. The storytelling in that is so insane. And then what Bret means to me, which is funny, is like I just have this like, I don't know, I just have this like instant access to this guy that I, like I said, I consider the best ever. And he's able to explain a lot of cool things to me and explain things to me that make a lot of sense. And I mean, we were texting back and forth a couple weeks ago about just about wrestling and our philosophies on it. So like for me, it's insane that I have this kind of relationship with Bret.
How about that piece of advice he gave you? That you
the advice. So it's a little different, but I think it stems with like maybe a lot of kind of the problems he had with Sean, and but his advice was never sign a deal, never sign a contract that you can't be happy with. Like, so what his meaning was like, just know that like whatever contract you sign, the next guy coming up is gonna probably use that as leverage and sign a better deal. So like you always just have to know like the next guy is probably gonna get a better deal than you because he's gonna use your deal as leverage. Like especially like I think from Bret's point of view, he's talking about like in that position, like top. He came in and he got a bigger contract than Sean in 97 and I think or 96, and I think that sparked a lot of things. So I think like that advice always made so much sense to me. And I've told people it's like, hey, when it's contract time, just know like whatever deal you sign, like, don't worry about what this next guy is getting because it doesn't affect you. You just have to worry about like what can you get. And then in terms of like matches, his advice, he's always just kind of led with a cool head and just always he's just always very simple, but always just kind of said the cool heads prevail and just like, and you know, maybe from his own experience, he's just like, hey, like, as long as like you're not hurt, you're like, it's okay. You can redeem that match again. It's okay.
No, for sure. As a Canadian little kid, man, Bret Hart is my favorite of all time. Those other wrestlers that captured my imagination.
Sure, of course.
Macho Man and Bret. Macho Man.
I'm a giant Macho Man fan.
Macho Man's my favorite. Taker's other, but Bret was real to me, and that was the difference because those two seem so out of this world. Where Bret was like, he's a real life superhero. Like he's real. He's legit. Like Savage is all over the world. Taker is like this dead guy. Bret was real, and that's what Bret.
I think for like us Canadians, it felt like he was like, I don't know, and I mean this in the giant company, exactly what you're saying, where he felt real. He felt like a hockey player that was wrestling. Yeah. Like the way that we look at hockey players in Canada, especially at that time, he felt like that. He didn't feel like an over-the-top cartoon character.
Yeah, like you could be like him if you tried real hard. I don't know if I could be the Macho Man or the Undertaker.
Yeah.
That's true. I could achieve to try to be like Bret Hart. You know, he's a role model in that sense. And that's what when I met him, I went to go meet him when I was 6 years old, and I cried, so I never actually got to meet him. So I had an unsigned 8x10 for so many years.
And you haven't met him?
I was 26. And I came to New Orleans. A wrestler for the WWE told me to make sure to come there. He's going to try to help me out with something. It fell apart, didn't work out. So I ended up going to WrestleCon without any intention going to WrestleCon. Threw my Chalkline jacket, Bret Hart, Austin, WrestleMania 13 one. Favorite match of all time. So I made sure, I don't know. There was no thought process behind it. That was just the jacket I picked. I put it on. I'm walking around WrestleCon, doing my thing. I was like, hey, met up with Danielle Monet. We're friends. We were supposed to swap shirts or something, whatever. And I walked past Bret's table, and I was wearing a wrestling classic shirt. And he's like, looked at me because he had one from Blade in Dallas that gave it to him and made him take a picture in it. And he was like, hey, it's you. And I was like, oh, hi, like whatever. You know what I mean? And then I went, stood in line. I'm like, oh, I might as well meet Bret. Let's make up for like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm standing in line, and he kept getting up to like either go get water or whatnot. And at one point, like sometimes I have like no shame, and I should probably zip my mouth. But I was just, he walks around, I was like, hey man, like you keep leaving, like I'm like, this line's not moving. And he looks at me, he's like, why are you even standing in line? And he pulled me out of the line. He took me to the front, and we sat there and we talked. And he signed the jacket. and I like a couple of months prior to that, like Dallas and his now wife and everyone came to Vancouver, and I took him out in Vancouver, went to the Roxy, went to Park Casino, and all that, and hung out. Yeah. And he's asked me, he's like, oh, they said they had a really good time when they came there. Like, thank you for taking care of them, yada, yada, yada. And I guess they're only like legally contracted to just sign their name. But so the lady started pulling the jacket, and he's like, no, 1 second. He's like, best match ever. And then
that's so cool.
It's crazy how it came so full circle. And I was like, yo, like I idolized this guy when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting him 20 years later, and like he like kind of knew who I was, and it's so cool. And that also goes back to Bret was real. Like he's a real.
I've watched him at those signings, and he like takes such pride in like talking with everybody. And like, he takes such pride in his signature, and like and getting a story out of the people he's meeting and giving one back or whatever it might be. And like, I mean, I've watched him. I've literally watched him.
No, and I've been to some of his Q&A stuff he's done recently, and like
never just like sign and get out of here.
No, and you ask him a question, he'll give you the full thorough story. Like
he'll give you a very honest answer.
Yeah, but back to you now. Back to you. Workhorse Fitness. I want to make sure we plug this on here because I'm not sure if it was you or the people you work with, but you guys were so nice to send me out a whole bunch of product like a few years back when I was probably going to the gym. I've been off and on. We're back at it again now. I've gone 7 days in a row. We're getting back at it. But when I used the products back then, they work. Those fat burner pills?
Yeah,
they work.
Like the wrestling talent, really like the melting point.
Yeah, no, that stuff. Like I was doing a lot of cardio and I was taking that. I'm like, oh, I'm sweating. This stuff is working. This is great. How did you guys get into that? What was the whole process of starting Workhorse Fitness?
Yeah, it was this friend of mine. We were kind of talking, and he was talking about he was kind of like taking. I was doing like some signings and stuff, and he was kind of managing that for me, like the schedule. And he said, hey, like this supplement. I think a supplement company had reached out about like, they'll send me some stuff if I do a post. And then like, hey, I have a friend who sells supplements, and I think you could do really well if you wanted to get into that. And then I was like, well, I'm on the road. And he's like, well, no, like if we could do it together, and I'll take care of all this. Like I'll do all the grunt work, the shipping, all that stuff. And so it just like kind of sparked this idea. Then we reach out to this like distribution company, and they're like, yeah, here's like our list of ingredients. And they had them kind of like labeled almost in like, almost like A, B, C. A, B, S, B, moderate, and C. Still supplements, but like weaker. And they said like a lot of people will use C. And I was like, why is that? And they were like, well, because like the profit margin's a lot higher. So I got you. So I'm not really worried about the profit margin. I just want to, even if no one buys this and I just use it all myself, I want to have the best pre-workout for myself. So I was like, no, it's got to be all the A ingredients. So that was kind of how that process all got together.
No, it's dope. So guys, if you are listening to this on wherever you listen to TMZ show, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out Workhorse Fitness, man. Like the stuff actually works. I got to use it myself a few years back. It's good stuff, man. It worked out for me. The fat
burners a hit. It's really good at like kind of curbing your appetite and like
because
focus.
No, for sure. And for me, like sometimes I need that because most of the time I'm just trying to lose a little bit of weight and get in shape. So, I'm not trying to get jacked or anything. I don't know about that,
but we're on the goal of improving somehow, some way.
Yeah. Before I pass it over to Daniel to kind of give you the last couple of questions, I also just want to point out, just because they're from here, they've always been nice to me. Them Singh Brothers. What do you think about them Singh Brothers?
Yeah, they're good dudes.
They're really good dudes. I remember I did a podcast with them back in 2016. I got to go to their house, and I was like, oh, they're just like me. They're just regular guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You're right. They're cool. Like you just Curve.
Yeah.
He
has that mutual love of Tupac that you guys do.
Yeah,
and myself, I guess. But
okay. His first day in this business, he wrestles with me in the dungeon.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So like we always kind of have that bond. Literally, he doesn't know any. I mean, not he hasn't learned wrestling. He's obviously a big fan. I remember Bruce calling him to get on the mat with me, and we just kind of like roll around, like wrestle around, and I'm like kind of trying to teach him how to do this stuff that he doesn't know how to do yet.
Yeah. So how cool is it for you to see him pop up on the WWE then when you were there?
Like, those guys, when they did the Cruiserweight Classic in Orlando, I was still injured at the time. And they drove over to hang out a couple times. And I remember going to Orlando and going to Korean barbecue with them. And they're just genuine, super nice. That, I mean, I honestly don't know what it would take on this earth for me to have some kind of a confrontation with those guys.
Yeah, no, 100%.
What would it take? Like,
no, they're really, really nice.
I drive my Hummer through their front door, and they might get a little bit upset. I don't know. I don't know what would make them so angry with me to like really have a confrontation.
No, they were really good dudes. I used to watch them here at ECCW. We got close for a bit, and then
I wrestled ECCW a couple times.
Yeah, oh, did you? Okay, yeah, no, I used to go when I was really young, and then so like when I was in high school,
05, I wrestled a few shows.
Okay, yeah, so I was in high school. I went to a few shows when I was in high school then. And then I remember the Burroughs twins told me to start coming back to shows again. And then you know, Lindsay discovered them to her, to her credit. But then I started popping back in there again, and I got to meet the Singh Brothers and everybody else. And I was like, oh, this is. And I started working with them a bit, and then I got close to Singh Brothers. And I was like, I see them working out with you all the time on social media, so I was just curious, like, what you thought on them.
I mean, they're always such good dudes. Like, you can never say anything bad about them. They want to work hard. They want to do their best, and they're just like it's good because I like to see like good people succeed. So it's very 100%. Cool.
That's the best thing too. And I'm gonna pass over to Daniel, but one last quick question. Sorry, now ahead. Is there any way, or has there ever been any conversation of getting that cruiserweight division mixed back up in that Raw roster? Because I'm
not sure. So I recently was like they came by the ring and I asked them if they'd heard anything. Like when we go back on the road, if like 205 comes back to like be in this like on SmackDown, that's what it was before the pandemic. So I just don't know. I don't know like what like thought has gone into all these things.
Yeah, because I'd love to see them mix it up, like the old WCW vibe where they're on the show, but you know,
I like that. That. I agree.
Yeah,
no, 100%. I think that would be a great combination, but. Taking it back for a quick minute, I know you trained in the dungeon. You have some great stories. So do you have like any interesting stories that you've never shared before? Because I think I was listening to like the New Day podcast or I think it was Talk of Jericho from a couple of years back. And I think it was Natalya who told Jericho that the dungeon was actually a hospital in the First World War, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the house was.
The house was. Yeah.
And then like the downstairs where the dungeon, not the dungeon room. There's a room where they had this treadmill that Jim Neidhart got from the NFL from the Raiders.
Yeah.
But in that other room was like kind of an infirmary where like bodies were.
That's crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
I did not know that about the house. That's insane.
I'm trying to remember. I remember. Like this might not be the best story, but I remember YTV had a show called Alpha to Omega, which if you're in Canada, you know YTV, and if you're anywhere else, you have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
It's like our Cartoon Network, guys.
Yeah, but then like it sounds bad, but not a great Cartoon Network compared to the American one.
I just remember that little purple blob thing with the screen in it and the top.
Yeah.
YTV was it?
To Omega, and out of nowhere they reached out to. They called the house, and then I don't know. All of a sudden, I remember Davey said, "Hey, YTV wants to do a thing. They want to do you and Harry to do a little like segment, a little match." And I was like, "Okay, cool." And YTV stands for Youth Television, and so I think like the caveat was they preferred if I'm under 18, which I wasn't. I was 19, but I was still pretty small, and so Davey was like, yeah, I told him that you're 16. I think so Harry'd be like 14 at the time or something. And so we have this match on Alpha to Omega. And one funny part of it, of course, doesn't make air, obviously, but Stu was demoing some holds earlier in the dungeon, and he got his hands on me, but not it was not the first time he got his hands on me. That's usually pretty rough, pretty crazy, but like but an honor though. And anyway, now he's like talking with the crew, and he calls Harry and I are by the ring, and Stu is like probably like 50 feet away, maybe 100 feet away, and he calls Harry over to demo a hold on Harry, but we're on the other side of the ring, so like Stu has to look across the whole ring to see us. We're on the ground, we're on the floor, so our heads are like he can see us, and he called Harry, specifically Harry. Well, Harry drops down, so now I get called over. And I remember I like kick Harry kind of in the ribs. And for the little scene, I was wearing this at the time it was this company called Hot Skins. It was like a big in bodybuilding, but I was wearing like this tank top for this little promo I did, but it's like spaghetti string tank top, so it's almost shirtless basically. And Stu calls me over and he starts demoing holds on the gravel, and so my back is all scraped up.
Oh man!
I just remember being like,
yeah,
I get it. I understand why Harry didn't want to take it either, but I wasn't the one initially called over. So.
Yeah, he snuck his way out of it.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I've only seen that episode. Like I caught the last little bit of it when it aired at the time, but the last bit I have never seen it. I've looked it up on YouTube. I've looked it up on Google. I have never seen this episode ever.
I gotta go find it somewhere.
You gotta contact YTV.
Dude, I've never seen it.
That's crazy. Absolutely. But I got one more question. Do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to enter the business as a professional wrestler or anything? Because I know a lot of people look up to you, especially myself, because you set that bar and you just want to keep, getting people to work harder. But do you have any advice?
Honestly, like working hard is always gonna so if you have two people and one is just like has a ton of natural ability and one doesn't, but the one with natural ability doesn't, they already have it, kind of comes easy to them, and maybe if they're not motivated enough to work hard, they might just stay at that natural ability level, where the person who maybe doesn't have it is maybe down here, but maybe that person's willing to work really hard, and that hard work then gets them even, but then over time also gets them up here. So I think my point being, like, there's never a limit to how good you can be, and there's never a limit to how far you can go. Like,
yeah,
I remember so SummerSlam '92. Now I know I want to be a wrestler. I remember telling my mom and my mom's friend. I remember telling my mom. Then my mom's friend was over. Then they were talking. Then whatever gets brought up, and I remember specifically, and it's so crazy to me, but I'm like 12, 13. I remember my mom's friend being like, "What? You're not going to be a wrestler? Look how you're just a kid. Look how small you are." Yeah, I was like, man, I'll show her. And I was like 13. I was like, okay, you'll see. And she's like, maybe a manager, but like, you can't be a wrestler. And I just remember being like, I remember being like, what? That's the first time someone, like, once I told my brain this is what I was going to do, this is the first time someone had told me the opposite. Because with the Hart family, it was like, yeah, of course you could be a wrestler. Yeah. Why not? Yeah. But then, like, my mom's friend was like, no, you're not going to be a wrestler. So, Here we stand 30 years later. But which is fine, obviously. But
I mean, it worked out. You proved her wrong, so
yeah. But that wasn't all my intent. Like,
maybe that helped. Maybe at the end of the day, the silver lining is you remembered that and it helped you.
Yeah. And so I never want to tell somebody they can't do something or they can't be something, because I know that feeling. I know how it felt when it happened to me. So anybody that's looking for advice or looking to get into wrestling, my advice is like follow it and see what happens. I mean, I just watched the Foley biography. He may not have been the most athletic person at his wrestling school, for example. There probably were people that looked at him at the wrestling school and were like, this guy will never make it.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mick Foley kind of made it.
Yeah,
he
did. No,
the
kind of worked for the moment. I understand.
For sure. But man, I want to thank you for all you do for guys like me and girls like others that want to come up, because I'll text you and I feel like I'm bothering you sometimes because I'll hit you up. I'll be like, hey, like, what match can I sell you? I remember you told me to look at Austin and Bret, and I watched it like so many times. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna look at it from this perspective, break it down, and then just keep, finding more matches. But thank you, man. Like,
oh no, my pleasure. You're never bothering me, not ever.
Sure, man.
Thank you for coming on the show and
guys, my pleasure. I'm sorry that I was late. I Forgot I got sidetracked.
That's okay.
It's all good.
Better late than never. I don't know.
Wrong.
I mean, I can sit here and pretend I was mad about it, but I'm late to lots of things. So,
I run on time all the time, so I mean, I'm late.
I mean, there's a thing called Indian time. It's a thing, I think. But I appreciate you coming on. Honestly, thank you guys. Honestly, you guys, the entire family. Tell Natty I said hi. You guys have always been nothing but kind to my page and what I do and all of that.
I always like genuine fans. I appreciate always. It's obviously you're gonna find mix of It's fine. That's in everything. But like the genuine, like anyone that I've genuinely met, like I have nothing but respect for wrestling fans because I'm a wrestling fan too. I just took it that extra, step or 10 steps, whatever the number is. I took it that extra. I'm a fan too.
No, for sure. And I appreciate all the support and all the love you guys always show. It means a lot. It makes me feel like, I can do more, which is always great.
Which like we all can, which is cool. Like, hell yeah. I love it.
I mean, it led to things like this, me doing interviews. I never thought I was going to do this ever, so I appreciate it. And to the Workhorse Fitness stuff, people check that out. Follow TJ on social media. And I've said it a million times. I made Daniel ask you guys on my behalf, like open a wrestling school one of these days. I honestly think it would prosper a lot if you.
I'd love to.
Open a wrestling. I think he would love to come to your wrestling school if you guys open a wrestling school.
If you guys ever open one, let me know because I'm about to graduate high school in like 2 weeks, and I'd love to get in there, man. So,
we've definitely thought about it. It's just a matter of kind of putting everything into place.
Yeah, and time management, and how it would work. Yeah,
and this going back on the road is going to kind of be the thing that will allow me to see what my schedule, once things are like really back, it'll help me to understand my schedule when it comes to my own ring, my own personal ring, and figuring out what exactly I can and can't do when it comes to that.
No, absolutely.
I'm a big supporter of that idea. We need a new dungeon. But other than that,
I appreciate
anything else you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, man, you guys are great. You guys are easy. It's not even an interview. We just had a conversation.
It's a casual conversation.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't have to. Obviously, I had to think about my Survivor Series team. I didn't have to sit and think about an answer when you asked me a question like, "What match did I like?" It's like, I kind of like Bret. I think like that. There's an easy conversation. It's not an interview or like it is awesome. This has been a cool chat.
Thank you.
I love talking with people about wrestling, especially people who love wrestling.
For sure, man.
That's what it's always been about, man. Just trying to make sure people remember why they still love wrestling and putting that energy out there.
Thank you.
I'm not, it's always great to have opinions and thoughts and conversate. That's always keeping the conversation going. But at the end of the day, remember we all love this and we want it to go on.
I did Joel Gertner's show and it kind of hit me like on the fly. Literally, was not some prepared thing. Yeah. We were talking and I was like, wait, that's why. So when I got hurt, I like forced myself to like fall out of love with wrestling because I knew I wasn't gonna wrestle again. I couldn't. Mm-hmm. So I almost tricked myself into looking at it a little bit differently, not really being in love with it, and maybe not to the same degree, and treating it as like this is now. And then when I became a producer, treating it as like, okay, like this is the next, like this is what I do now, but I don't know. And it was good. Like I said, I worked with Seth almost immediately. I worked under Michael Hayes, Jamie, all these great guys that I learned so much from. But it just still was. I like for the first time in my life, like because of my injury, I was able to kind of turn it off. I was never, or that I'm never able to turn wrestling off, but I was able to kind of turn it off in my brain a little bit. And this past year and a half has totally disintegrated that valve to turn it off. It can't go off anymore. And I really, honestly, like fell back in love with wrestling again this past year. Yeah. And it goes, that's with, I get to work with like the best people in the world. So that's where that's come back from. And it's maybe stronger than ever because it's kind of cool. Like I fell in love with it as a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And you almost don't know what you're falling in love with. But now on this side of things, I'm almost 41 and I know exactly what I'm falling in love with and why. Yeah. When you're a kid and you fall in love with it, you don't know.
Yeah.
But now I know exactly. It's kind of like, honestly, it's like I'm a big basketball fan. I was a big basketball fan when I was a kid and I got away from a very long time. And now I'm like dialed in and I remember why I loved it when I was a kid.
It's a little bit of that, like I'm turning 30 in November, and you get sometimes those friends that watched you when they were younger and stuff also and whatnot, and they'll sometimes I'll go on I'll be on a date or something, and a girl will be like, they'll figure out what I'm doing on social media, and they'll be like, so how do you still watch that? And I'd be like, you know, when I watched as a kid, we believed it, and it was all real to us, and superheroes, larger than life characters, and all that. But I'm like, once I kind of understood what it was as I got older, I learned to appreciate it a different way.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what changed. Yeah. Now I see art behind it, and this, like, I see it as the story, and the like. It's like, if you really love a television show, it's basically that in a way. And I've learned to appreciate it this different way, and it makes me even like it even more, but in a totally different way.
That's why, like, I love that Bret Steve Austin match so much. Is for like that exact reason, because I was afraid to watch back, thinking I was going to be some know-it-all to pick it apart, like I said, and then I was like, well, I'm so dumb. Why did I take 8 years to watch this back? Like, of course they're going to tell this awesome story.
Yeah.
The story is perfect.
And you appreciate them telling that story now rather than watching as a kid. Like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, these guys did really good. Like, that was dope. Like, they had me stuck in.
When I was 16 watching that match, I'd already had my first match. I'm not a pro by any means. But I'm trying to, in my mind, I'm watching it for the technical aspect. I'm watching it for like the movement. I'm watching it for like almost critiquing that or seeing what I can take in terms of the movement. And the story, when I'm 16, that's going over my head. I'm not getting the story. I didn't like, and also, you know, we're watching pay-per-views at Harry's house, and there's usually a big group of people watching, so we're all talking and this while it's going on. So like, I honestly didn't understand that day that that Bret was a bad guy. Yeah. Like, I didn't walk away from that match thinking Bret was a bad guy. I thought, okay, Bret beat Steve Austin. I honestly, I didn't realize the crowd booed. Like, it's so crazy. Like, I just was watching for the moves, and I missed everything.
Oh, no, for sure. When I was a kid, I didn't get it.
Yeah.
When I watched as a kid, I had no idea. Yeah. And then when I watched it getting older, I was like, then you start understanding those things.
And you go, how did I miss that?
Yeah, like, oh, because I was still a Bret fan. I was still a Bret fan.
And Shamrock throws him, and he's like, oh, my God. Yeah,
I was still a Bret fan, so none of it fazed me. But I also liked Austin. But I was like, I was still a Bret fan. But then you're like, the small intricacies, like, oh, he didn't want to fight Shamrock. That's not very Bret Hart. Like, okay, you know, like,
and that's such a giant piece, I think, of that whole story. Like, if you go watch that back, obviously when he's kicking Steve Austin after the match, crowd's not really booing him yet. The crowd's kind of like, okay, like maybe Steve Austin deserves a little bit of this.
Yeah.
And then Shamrock throws him from behind, and then like Shamrock does the
stance.
The Shamrock stance, and Bret backs down. And then
you don't notice as a kid, but when you're older, you're like, oh, I get what he's doing there. Yeah. Bret doesn't do that.
Bret, the crowd explodes. It's
crazy.
Backs down. They rain booze on him. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
It makes sense that Bret wouldn't fight Shamrock. He just had a long match.
Yeah. That's the world's most dangerous man. I wouldn't want to fight him either.
And I was the biggest Ken Shamrock fan. He either comes to Calgary. No, I think he'd come to Calgary a little before that. I just remember like Teddy's dad picking him up from the airport. Me and Teddy are in the back of the van, not in the back, but we're behind him in the van. Shamrock's in the passenger seat. Ted's dad driving. I just remember being back there just staring at Ken, like, wow. Ken Shamrock's in this car right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen this guy in UFC. He's so tough.
No, and they used to actually dub him like he was the world's most dangerous man. You thought he could beat up anyone.
We had a flight. We had a TV taping in like I think Lexington, and then from there we were flying to Europe a couple weeks ago. So it was like Lexington to Chicago to wherever the first spot was. But Shamrock is on our flight from Lexington to Chicago, and just so happens I sit directly behind him.
Oh wow!
Just like 16-year-olds being sat directly behind the car. It was so crazy. But same thing. I didn't introduce myself or anything. I just kind of left him alone. Mm-hmm. And like I just remember looking. I was like, man, he still looks great for what however old he is. And then I just remember like sitting behind him and just thinking like, this is so funny that I'm in the exact same spot, except now instead of a van, it's on an airplane.
Yeah,
it's just so funny.
Full circles, those full circle moments. It's like, oh,
it's kind of like about Bret.
Yeah,
Bret is so funny.
Yeah, it's crazy how life works that way. But thank you.
Oh, gosh.
This is the thing is, like, I know we can keep going. Like, I know.
That's why we do it in parts.
That makes sense. I would love to have you back on for sure.
Man,
the three of us. Yeah. But thank you again. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everything you do, man. Like I said, if you help produce that Sasha-Bianca match, obviously those two girls killed it, but you're part of that story too in the background that people don't get to see. So thank you as well. and I'll probably watch that again and force Daniel to watch it.
I would never take credit for anybody.
Yeah, no, but you have your part. You have your part. Like, I mean, and
they killed it out. We couldn't have been more proud.
Yeah, no, it's a great match, and I'm a big Sasha mark, so I'm just gonna keep pumping that up. But other than that, I appreciate you doing this with us, and I get it's fun.
No, it's absolutely been my pleasure. Like you said, like we can talk wrestling all day long.
Yeah, it's the greatest form of art and athleticism. That's what I always say on my page. That was the little tagline for a bit. But yeah, guys, keep supporting wrestling, keep doing the thing, and we'll see you all next time. Ooh, yeah, dig it.
There you go.
There you go.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.